Hey everybody, it's Steve. How's it going? Um, so recently, I just found out that apparently, even though Mark Zuckerberg is now a MAGA person or something along those lines, with no more whatever uh, censorship on Facebook, you can still wind up in Facebook jail. And because I have just wound up in Facebook jail, I can't comment. Um, just like the old days when people used to accidentally say the wrong thing. I got thrown in Facebook jail one time for reposting something. I didn't change it in the slightest or whatever, but I reposted it. And then somebody that saw it, as the usual people, somebody that saw it that disagreed with it at the time, was whining about what they always complain about, like that they think that people that are more liberal than they are, or at all, I guess, have too thin a skin. And so they complained at the time that I offended their sensitive natures. Well, now, and, we thought that was all gone, right? Now I've wound up in Facebook jail again. I have no idea how long. It hasn't said anything about time or anything like that. It just said that I'm temporarily blocked from being able to post on Facebook, which is good because I actually got away from Facebook for quite some time, like well over a year, because I was just tired of all the vitriol and all that stuff from it. But I got lulled back in, and the exact same thing happened again. I posted, I reposted something about that. I guess pedophilia is okay now as far as Trump people are MAGA. They, the whole Epstein thing and all that kind of stuff. There's nothing to see there and all that crap, right? Well, anyway, I reposted a meme, a cartoon of a MAGA person wearing a MAGA hat, and it's a skeleton flipping people off, which is supposed to be them, because that's kind of how they do. Oh, fuck you guys, and all your snowflake whatever feelings, and that you have feelings or whatever, and so I reposted that, but it says the bottom line was it said. We're into pedophilia now, and it's all good, fine, no worries about it anymore. Well, and the only reason I reposted that was because no matter what promises he makes, it ends up being okay later that he doesn't do it. Or no matter what promises he makes, like, I'm a big Christian, he forgets how to pronounce it or whatever. And then he's selling his own Bibles and stuff with his name in it and all kinds of crap. But now apparently they're okay with the pedophilia thing, the Epstein thing. That's just a big lie, no matter how much information is there. Well, anyway, somebody complained about that. And all that had to happen was a complaint. And I've been removed. I just wanted to let everybody know that's why. Beware. You can be removed for being like them. Anyway, it's all good. So one of the reasons I'm addressing today is I want to find out what people think about how things are going. I'm not, everybody can tell if they saw my stuff on Facebook or whatever, that I was basically going through YouTube and finding some of the, kind of the non-typical news reports from like third parties, people that are not actual news people, but they're usually military or former military, and they're still plugged in to the intelligence community, and they're still really interested, in what's happening geopolitically around the world. And sometimes it's as simple as they're interested in the new weapons that are coming out and the weapons that we're helping Ukraine with and all that kind of stuff. And so I got several different kinds of kind of news reports about what's really happening, in Ukraine and with Russia, because I think a lot of what we see every day on regular news is pretty filtered, you know. And they can't report every single thing. Even with a 24-hour news cycle, they seem to re-report and re-report and re-report the same stuff. You know how it is. If it bleeds, it leads, right? And some of us think a little more deeply than that, or a little farther into the future than that. And so, yeah, I'm curious about it. And when I see one that's interesting to me, or that I believe is factual and that actually could make a difference, I repost it. Okay. But for a while, I'm going to be cut off on reposting things on Facebook because the censorship meme or the censorship system that they've got it's not about people anymore. So no person is looking at the thing. It's a person complains, and really no matter what's been complained about, it's automatically dealt with by taking the person that was complained upon, off for a temporary thing. So kind of makes Facebook pointless when one side can see, because I've actually never complained about anybody. And so I've never gotten somebody removed. I'm like, what, you want to have a go? Let's have a go. Or if you want to put out what you say as facts, you should be able to be okay with what other people put out as facts. And the individual that I'm referring to is somebody that I know. And I think, they complained because they thought I was saying Gary Sinise was a pedophile, and I wasn't saying that at all. I was looking at their page, and they had lots of different things posted. One of the things was a thing that Gary Sinise was leading, and it was, and I admire Gary Sinise. I would never say anything bad about him because there's just nothing bad to say that I know of, and lots of good things to say though. But anyway, it was a child helping kind of thing, and I'm like, it's funny you post a thing about child helping when at the same time you're also worshiping. That's not overstatement. But supporting a proven child rapist. And so I'm just trying to, for this individual, I was just trying to draw attention to that conflict of, common sense, that what they're doing is posting something that's great about Gary Sinise or anybody else trying to help children that need help. Yes, good. At the same time, they're supporting a person who is openly turning off all aid to things like SNAP, and if that individual happens to be watching, I'm not going to name you, but if you'd like to look something up, look up what SNAP stands for. It's an acronym, and look up what each letter stands for. And you might realize that what your person you're supporting is actually not helping those people like Gary Sinise is. He's doing his best to hurt those people by making sure that they don't have what they need to survive. So anyway, we're in such a divided time, and everybody, that's been being said so much every single day that it's just ridiculous. It's like saying the sky is blue. Well, when it is blue, it is blue. And there's nothing about the divided society we're in now that needs to be said again. But this has happened many, many times before, and it's been much, much worse before than it is now. This is nothing new here. The only thing new is what we've got to do. The rest of the normal people have to do about it. And, we got to resist. And resisting isn't just making memes or, reposting stuff from YouTube or whatever. That's just information. Resisting means all kinds of things, but it means what's appropriate, right? I mean, me and a ton of other people I know could take way more drastic measures, but it'd be inappropriate at this point. Okay. So we're, hopefully the rest of them too, not just me, but hopefully nobody does that. We don't need any more, ridiculousness or things going too far, you know. Um, what some people are willing to do sometimes is the right thing, and it just happens to be the right thing for the time. But now is not the time for the craziness. Okay. What I've been doing is the right time. And we all have to resist. We can't just sit there and complain. Complaining's okay because that's one of the steps, but we're past that. Now we have to get together and use our voice. And I really appreciate somebody that I apologized to everybody a while back ago for making so much of my content about this particular subject. And she's one of the most intelligent human beings I've ever met in my life, and an attorney, and just a smart one, a wise one too, on top of that. And she said it was just me using my voice. And, that made me feel a lot better. And I realized I could probably clean up what I'm doing quite a bit just to make it a good, especially coming from her, a brilliant litigator. But I just realized that I could make it more focused and less emotional, and so I'm attempting to do that. And the reason I'm kicked off of Facebook right now is because of something that I said, that it was absolutely 100% informational, and I was specifically trying to reach them. That's why I did it on their feed, because they said something so ridiculous to me that it was sort of like the whataboutism type thing, but even dumber. And so I reposted something from that I saw to them, and then they took it a different way and too far, and then complained like a little whining baby, and got me temporarily removed. The good news is, do that with Facebook, because I don't think Facebook will remove me or anybody else that's resisting. And as soon as they release the whatever on Facebook, I might go back. I might not. Facebook is kind of yesterday's bullshit, to be honest. And so, I'll find something else. WhatsApp, whatever, even though I know they're 100% hacked. There's all kinds of things I can do there without, saying or doing something that will get people I know hacked by the foreign entities that I know are hacking WhatsApp. So it's entirely possible to be careful and still resist appropriately. So, and when the times come, I will resist in any way, shape, or form that's appropriately. And I really, really, really encourage my friends who I know, and I have a ton of friends that way, and almost none of them are on my contacts list, kind of a thing, because those are the kind of people that you do not put out there into the air. They wouldn't appreciate that, and I wouldn't appreciate it if they did it. So nobody that's not supposed to see who they are, nobody will. I've got one friend that he and I aren't that serious, so it's not that big of a deal that he's on there. And we talk too often for that anyway. So, but anyway, to everybody that's being discouraged by all the crazy division and some of the cards that are stacked against us, because we're not on the money side, we're on the correct side, right? What do you guys think is a good way to approach that? I mean, and I would love to hear about, do you have some ideas about what the appropriate actions are for a resistance, and try to project out from now how things are, at the level they are, until when things take the next step. And what I mean in geopolitical terms, in America's actions, in global actions, like if Russia ever decides to deploy a tactical nuke, which is not Hiroshima, that's like something that would maybe mess up thousands of people rather than millions, but Europe will get involved, then America will be required to get involved, but Trump has really, it's really been obvious that Trump's in the pocket of Adolf Putin, and that he will resist that and stuff. So what, and my guess is the people around him are just smart enough to make it to where that he'll respond in the legalist, the minimalist way, but that's still legal. And but if he were to respond illegally and not help, or even help the wrong people, what would you think is the appropriate response at that time? So really, I'm looking for smart people, not the other ones. But the other ones can contribute if they like. I'll read everything, and respond if you really want me to. But what do you think is the appropriate type of resistance for each stage of where geopolitical stuff is taking us? Not just them, not just the rest of the world, but us. They're embarrassing the shit out of us in front of everybody and turning on our closest allies and just hosing the rest of the world. They're being nice to the worst of all human beings on Earth, and they're basically throwing shit at all the people that have been on our side and that we have been on their side throughout history. And so I am a small part of a very large percentage of Americans that are horribly embarrassed and ashamed about the actions our own country is taking right now. But at some point, we are going to change that, whether it's the next election. Waiting the 3 years is going to be sucky. But there's all kinds of things that could happen between now and then. So what actions do you think we should take that are most appropriate yet effective? Okay. Because I'm absolutely about efficiency, but I'm not interested in the slightest way about overstepping my bounds. I'm not in the slightest way interested in hiding either. I don't fear for my own safety at all. Never have. And in this particular area, never will. So please, smart people, and you know who you are, don't really have to respond if you're not the kind that I'm talking about, okay? But feel free if you want to. Anyway, that's it for now, and it's short, I think, really compared to, it's like not even 20 minutes. You guys are so lucky. Anyway, I'm going to repost this on YouTube and, wherever else, okay? I'm looking at Red Note now, but I'm not going to, I don't post anything there for us. A lot of Red Note is China state owned. There's a lot of shills on Red Note for the government, right? And I'm not interested in talking to them at all. I'm really interested in hearing from them, hearing what they're saying. And it's okay to support your own government, even if it's wrong. It's okay, right? At some point, hopefully everybody follows their heart, and what they know is true and what they know is wise. And remember to try to always be on the correct side of history. And giving in to power isn't almost ever on the correct side of history. Fighting for each other, supporting each other is almost always the correct side of history. I am not a religious person anymore, but at the same time, I admire every single thing that I've read in the Bible, which I've read many times, over and over, cover to cover. I admire every single thing I ever heard Jesus talk about. Whether he was a real person or not, I don't know. But whoever wrote him, I think they did a good job. The things in the Old Testament aren't rules. Not really, except for the 10 Commandments and stuff. They just didn't need restating because they were there once. The whole thing about eye for an eye, that's bunk. And Jesus said so. Okay. The 10 Commandments, the whole point of it is just a foundation so everybody knows, where things started. And then the New Testament is a revision of the Old Testament. And so I have a lot of really good Jewish friends and family. But that's where we differ. The Torah doesn't go far enough. and it believes in a lot of the old rules that were not revised. Okay, so if you want to know for sure how I feel about that stuff, I'm not against Jewish people in the slightest. I am 100% against right now the actions of Israel. Okay, I'm also not 100% okay with the people of Palestine. The whole October, whatever it was, where they came in and did all kinds of shit. That was 100% wrong and should have definitely gotten a response. Every single person that participated in the kidnapping and the holding of hostages, in my opinion, I would kill them all. Everybody that participated, personally, myself, and I would giggle while I did it. Okay? Don't get me wrong. I'm not a ultra peace lover. For the right reasons, peace is always the way to go. But for the right reasons, war is the right way to go to me. And that's one of the things I differ from the teachings of Jesus Christ. He said, never go to war. Always turn the other cheek. But if you always just forgive and you're, dumping a garbage can in an alley behind a restaurant or something, and if you don't fight back, sometimes you're just going to plain old die. And their whole point was, yeah, but you go to heaven after that. Well, guess what? I don't believe in that. I don't believe there's a heaven, and I don't believe there's a hell. I don't think this is it. I'm not an atheist. I think there's something next. I've really paid very close attention to all the records of Edgar Cayce. So if you want to have an idea of kind of where I'm at. And there's a bunch others, where that they talk about the next thing. Anybody that's ever felt gravity, you just fall off a roof sometime and you'll feel gravity because you won't go the other direction, thankfully, because there's no stopping if you do. But the reason that a balloon full of helium goes up and the reason that a person coming off a roof goes down is an invisible force. Lift or gravity. Like when you're parachuting, you go over a cold body of water, you're going to fall fast. And when you go over hot sand, you're going to rise fast. Those are invisible forces. Radio waves, frequencies, all invisible forces. Some frequencies, yet some are not. So to say that I don't believe in invisible forces that we can't figure out yet, that would be ridiculous. I'm a man of science. But that's the deal. It's science that we just haven't figured out yet. But at least we have an idea of what's going on. There's just more to life than we realize. There's too many people that are plugged in and that know shit that there's just no other way they could have known. Go through the Edgar Cayce stuff if you really want to know that. There's stuff that's well proven at the time, not even later. There was things that he made mistakes on, because him and Nostradamus both, they were looking at a picture, one was looking at a picture in his head. The other one was looking at a picture using a device, which was basically a trick so he could visualize it. But they were both looking at a picture without sound. And they interpreted things using what they already knew. And sometimes Edgar Cayce misinterpreted things. And, there were times when Nostradamus misinterpreted something, which is still something I really am fascinated with and find comical what he misinterpreted one thing to be. But he had no information either way. So look those things up. I recommend people disregard religion, but not disregard any of the morality of religion. But let me give you this one tiny little piece of advice, and then I'm going to end this video. Any religion that tells you to exclude anybody is wrong. Jesus never said to exclude people. The Old Testament did all the time. Every religion that I've ever read deeply about or talked to people that grew up in it, they all can tell me times when they've been told that they had to shun somebody in their religion because they disagreed with something. Jesus ate with sinners as opposed to other people that wanted to just totally ignore sinners or even kill them. Jesus said, don't don't execute that person unless you have no sin also, which is not possible. You know, there's nobody that's done nothing wrong, and you're presuming quite a bit to say one thing is way worse than something else, when in reality you don't know what's worse than what. You know, in biblical time, child molestation wasn't a thing apparently. You know, I mean, there were men marrying 10-year-olds all the time, old men. That's child molestation. You know, and in our society, the law of the land specifically states that. Yet the current person that was voted into office is a proven child molester. You know, and whether they're 15 or whether they're 14 or whether they're 10 or whether they're 8, it's all the same. A person that would, a grown man that would have sex with or a woman for that matter, a grown woman that would have sex with a person that's, 16, 14, 13, 10, 8, 2, they're the same. They're the same. You're taking advantage of somebody. That's the same thing as trying to talk somebody that is legally, intellectually challenged into having sex with you. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know how to make a good decision. You know, all the negative things that can happen because of that, they're so far and so far reaching. You know, you ruin that person's life forever because of 10 seconds of your own fun. You know, that's no better than murder. At least in murder, you're only hurting the people that person loved, that they loved, that loved them rather. Their problems are over. But the people that know about that person's murder will never trust the world again because of that murder. Well, it's the same difference, except it's worse, because the child that got molested will never be able to forget that. They'll never be able to raise children without that distrust, without that sense of violation, and they're going to pass that down, and in not the best ways very often. So anyway, that's my bit. Examine what you're doing, MAGA people. You know, I know a ton of MAGA people that have flipped for whatever reason, because they figured out the guy was lying his ass off. I was lucky. It wasn't a random piece of luck. It was information that was built since the 90s. I was lucky, though. I could see it because I got a heads up, and then from then on, I saw it. Okay? But it's never too late to make a good decision. Start examining your life. Start examining what you've been doing and switch what you've been doing. Fulfill your oath to everybody, including your parents, your dad. Don't forget the face of your father, to quote Stephen King. All right. You guys have a great day. I'll post this to YouTube, and comment, please. Have a good one.